Hello, my name is Tim May. I host the AI Meetup, and we have the speaker today, Matthew Denman, who's going to talk about AI personality. We are also going to do something a little different in this meetup. A lot of our meetups is all about people asking great questions, and unfortunately in the YouTube videos, it's hard to hear the questions. So I'm going to be running around and passing you a mic. So if you have a question, just give me time to get to you, and then we'll get it on the video in such a way that it'll be easy for the people that watch it later to hear what you're saying. If you do watch any of our previous videos, the trick is to turn on the subtitling, and AWS is doing a pretty good job. YouTube, pardon me, is doing a pretty good job of actually getting the questions printed out, so that works well. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Matthew, and we'll get going.
Thanks. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming and spending some time with me. We're going to be talking about AI personality or personalities, and what are they good for? Why would you want them? What are they? So let's go ahead and dive into it a little bit. First, about myself, my name is Matt Denman, and I'm a founder of Kusog AI, and we're building a product, AI agent, which is should have gone live last week, but due to not wanting to put something out before its time, it's still in the oven a little bit, but it should be coming out hopefully within the next week. I've got people kind of messing with it now already, but I'm talking about general availability for people to just go in and sign up. I have 40 years of experience since my first professional software engineering job. Maybe if you remember, if you were here, this is the second time I've spoke here. I worked at Fairchild Semiconductor in South Portland, Maine, testing chips for the military before they went out to the field, went into use. And so mostly I've been focusing on doing software engineering, massively parallel processing in C++. Then I started to do web development, did Java, C#, and started replacing like COM components and Windows desktop applications with web front ends, and I still go that way now, even if I'm deploying like a mobile app or something like that. So that's just a general. So just to give a context of how these personalities would fit in, I just want to talk a moment about like what is Kusog AI agent. Well, it provides an overall framework or an architecture for hosting models and making them interact and take action and provide value beyond just, say, going to the ChatGPT interface and typing things and getting responses and having to copy paste values out of it and stuff like that. So I am not building models. It's a combination of hosted models within that environment, and optionally can be SaaS models used as well, like say ChatGPT, Anthropic, or just use Llama, or I like Mamba. Has anyone here ever heard of Mamba? It's an interesting, very small number of parameter model, but it doesn't utilize your VRAM and your GPU as much. So it has good uses when you train it locally. So this system that I've been building tries to orchestrate those different capabilities. For example, creating content from email to multi-book series. So like, let's say you wanted to write a set of books that had like say Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, where you have a set of books that have characters that cross through time, then you could define those kind of things and build books that were hundreds of pages long with it and iterate with it, a mixture of AI content and human. Also, it's got a lot of integration with images using stable diffusion, control nets, and being able to generate images dynamically based on prompts. One of the things that this system has is what I call a multi-mode prompt. So when you send a prompt up to it, you can tell it, I want text LLM response, I want an audio streaming audio response of that text, and I want images to come back with it. Now you might have just done that as several separate API calls, but because they all come back and are a part of a singular response to the user, Sending it up as one call allows the system to be a little bit more cognizant of the fact that these different jobs need to be coordinated together. I don't want the LLM to respond and then 5 minutes later I get the voice response. This just isn't going to work, right? So yes, you could make separate calls, but it's harder to orchestrate the jobs and the AI work on a system when you didn't really have awareness that they were connected together. And so part of what this also does is the text-to-speech I was mentioning, but speech to text. And then also one of the bigger aspects that I was talking about before is being able to build a semantic network from documents. So either you're surfing the web with the Chrome plugin that will let you capture all the content that you're reviewing and then get it ready to put into the memory system of the AI, or you're uploading documents into the system and that gets turned into embedding. So if you've heard of RAG, you know, everyone's talking about RAG. It's basically, I use Elasticsearch, and so I would, as you upload the documents, I can go through this processing and you can even review that, and then those go into the memory system, which you can then use. And then I also grab semantic relationships, like Matt Denman is speaking at the Tech Alley AI event, you know, so that would be a kind of relationship for this data that's happening right now. And it has a way for you to explore that and kind of like trying to find the needle in the haystack. You know, if you bring in lots of documents across different domains and they have common connections together, you can connect the dots that might have been harder for you to see otherwise. And so AI personalities that perform roles to help fulfill your overall needs. So that's what we're going to be focusing more on, that aspect of it and why it has value and what you can do with it. So what is a personality? Well, it's a collection. I'm just showing a small portion. We're going to see some demos in a little bit, but for right now, I'm just showing some screen captures. And this is just a simple example of you specify like a gender, role, background, like your cultural background. It's interesting to be able to specify, you know, your location, the background of the personality's location. So this can help to define the personality, the type of images you see, the voice, the text that speaks this text down here back. And you can see here, we'll get into some of these other properties here in the personality slide. So what I was saying, specifying origins that like they came from the UK or from the India or Philippines, or maybe they're from Louisiana. You know, they went to Harvard and they got their MBA, and so the different types of education backgrounds and their location control the voicing of the text. So when you ask it to generate content, you don't get this generic style of output that you might be used to seeing. Like when you interact with, say, Claude 3 or you interact with GPT-4, you can tell in the output. How many times I've seen a LinkedIn profile, they build a bespoke Acme something. You know, and it's from the threads of their tapestry that they're going. And as soon as I see those words, I'm like, oh, ChatGPT was used to write that one. So I mean, it's nice to be able to say, hey, don't ever use the word tapestry and such like that. So being able to manage a background and be able to specify all these details, and you can go as far into this as you want. That because depending on how you're interacting with the personality, if you think about RAG and embeddings, the background that you're providing, those little chunks can come in to help say, oh, you're asking for marketing reports, and so my MBA from Harvard would come into play right now, or something like that. And also it lets you specify content ratings, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. What is content ratings? Well, it's a setting that you can put, and I've made this open, so I'm hoping this would become maybe a standard, because I haven't seen it. If anyone is here has seen talk about content ratings within AI output, please, I would like to hear about that. So this is what I've come up with. So this is like, how far would the personality be willing to go in the conversation? Like AI, why young all audiences versus Y7, a little bit older children, AI PG for parental guidance. And you can see, I won't get into all the details, but I did want to talk about MA, mature audience, doesn't mean porn or anything like that. It means medical conversations, for example, or conversations about cutting a person open for a surgery. You're not going to have those kind of conversations with an AI 14, not normally. But the MA plus is like soft porn, if you will, but not meant to go crazy. And it's not meant to be used, it's meant to have a certain kind of conversations, but it's not necessarily the AI girlfriend mode. It could be used in that way, but it's really more for, I want to be able to have conversations with you, and I don't want to have you moderate that, you know, for whatever it may be. There's a lot of I tried to have a chat GPT conversation about my aunt who's 80 years old and a trauma that happened to her as a child, and it immediately moderated that entire conversation, shut the whole conversation down. It wouldn't allow me to have that conversation, maybe because it was a minor at the time, maybe because of the nature of the thing that had happened to her, I don't know. So that's what some of these settings are for. But what I like about this is that I can control this personalities for other people, like when you think there's relationships. So if I have kids that are coming on here, I can control the level of interaction that they have versus the level of interaction I have versus the level of content that a book I'm writing is going to be written for. If I'm writing a children's book, I would want to target a certain type of content rating versus a content about psychology or content about athletics and certain aspects of that. You know, there's things that are adult content without having to be sexual in nature, you know, so that's one of the differences there. This is an important aspect of the personality and the overall content system, because I don't particularly care for these. I think the moderation's gone a little far with Claude, even. Like, I tried to have a conversation about faith and like what would happen if you were presented with a certain kind of scenario around that. Claude shut me down. Nothing to do with anything. So I've been able to get around that so when you pick certain of these ratings, it's not just the level of content that the personality is willing to have with you. It's also what model is going to get used by the back-end system. So some models have no problem with AI-Y through AI-14. AI-MA starts to get a little difficult, and then MA plus, most won't talk about any of it. So they've just moderated it all away. Now, as last time this isn't the politics, but I believe I'm not breaking the law with anything here, so that's not what we're trying to do, is violate the law in any way. So as long as we're not doing that and we're in a country like this, we should be able to have these responsibly. So that's an important part of, for me, what personalities are for. And so staying within the boundaries of the role is an important aspect of it. And so I would take a moment to talk about roles, define what kind of conversations you have. So I have, like, if I were to actually just go down here and bring up the browser, I have it running here, and so here's the animal. And when I drop down the roles, you can see I've got like Chief Medical Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, VP Product Engineering, Director of Sales, Software Engineer, Content Writer, Bodybuilding Coach, Personal Assistant, Pet Animal, CEO, Submissive Partner, and Counselor. And so these roles, though, they not only define the boundaries of the conversation, like a counselor is designed to have counseling type conversations with you. If you talk about certain type of topics, they will have that conversation with you, but not other type of topics. If you go to a personal assistant or a software engineer, they'll slap you in the face for certain type of things said. If they had an HR, they'd probably call them on you. So there's real personalities and boundaries of how far they would be willing to talk to you. But that's not all of the things that these do. They also drive back-end jobs. You know, so if you think about prompts, like normally when you use ChatGPT or Claude, you need to go in and you type your thing and you get a response. Maybe you're using an agent, and you finally have this conversation that you went through. Sometimes you can go to LinkedIn and download the top 20 marketing prompts that you can type, right? Well, this kind of does that as a chain of reasoning or a chain of thought process, like a prompt chain offline. And there are jobs or tasks that are assigned to roles. So based on like, oh, I'm a chief marketing officer, I'm a VP of sales, I'm a software engineer. So I can have a conversation with the CEO and the chief marketing officer and say, hey, what are we gonna do for KusogLife? So let's see if I can bring that up. And I'm going over my phone, so I'm not really sure how the internet is going to be okay here. So these contents, like you say, this article, this is one of the articles written by Max Braun. So he's the bodybuilder personality that was in that list. And you can see the way he writes. What's up, everyone? It's your boy Max Muscle here, and today we're talking about the importance of a healthy diet. You know the deal, a balanced diet with the right nutrition in the right amount. So I can, we say we need to write so many of these blog posts, which this is an older one, so you bear with it. I should be updating the site more, but I've been focusing on the AI agent product because I want to go live, so I haven't really been pushing content. But he is supposed to be writing on a regular basis. And so once I get the jobs hooked up for him, he should. But I'm not a big fan of I always, as a human, want to make sure I check everything that goes online because it can publish content to the site. Like when you use KusogLife, the AI agent as a company account, you get a web app, you can hook a domain name up to it, the personalities can publish content to it, and it can even do research on the web and bring product information into it for you and stuff like that. These images are coming out of Stable Diffusion. And if I go into Mind and Spirit, Victoria here, my dear ones, I come before you today as a humble servant of wisdom, sharing my experience and insight. In the twilight of my years, I have gathered a multitude of lessons, and blah, blah. Say not, I have found the truth, but rather I have found a truth. So that kind of writing, you can feel the difference. And so the output, the backgrounds of these people drive the way they write their content. And so, I might say, hey, what are we going to do with KusogLife to set up some new goals for the year? What are we going to try to do? So we have this conversation, and now there's offline jobs for the marketing, the VP of marketing and the sales, CMO, chief marketing officer, to talk. And they run those jobs to say, create a list of marketing ideas based on this conversation that we had from our goals for the year. And so those jobs that are associated with roles, like these here. Now that's an ongoing thing. There's not as many jobs on here as there should be. So because it's a newer feature of this ability to do that. And so like now if I were to come in here, I could say, what is your name and role? And I think I may have.
How can I assist you today, Matthew?
So it's kind of talking, and so if I now pick Diana, the counselor, and I say, what is your name and role?
Hey Matthew, my name is Diana. I'm here to provide you with counseling sessions and support using my built-up knowledge and skills. How can I assist you?
It's all about how you set up but wait, now let's try this VP of engineering. What is your name and role? And yeah, I think I'll try. There should never.
I'm Michael Kim, the Vice President of Engineering at KusogLife. Tom.
Oh,
I'm
it's not
responsible
switching the
for leading
voices, it
engineering
should
team,
be.
setting the
That's
technical
interesting.
direction for the company, and ensuring that we deliver high-quality software products. How can I assist you today?
So it should be actually switching the voice, and I'm kind of surprised it's not, and it might be because I spelled that wrong, and I need to make this a drop down instead of having to key it in. And so at any rate, you can see some of the, and I don't have all the fields filled out for some of these people like I do. Like if I come into Malazelle, and I type in what is your name and role.
Hi, Matthew. My name is Leslie. I'm your personal assistant. Always here to help you out with anything you need.
All right, so you get the idea of well, at least we didn't see anything too. I didn't have to say I'm sorry or apologize too much on that one. So, it is interesting that those the boundaries, and so one of the things that it also does is when you have conversations with the personalities, they become a part of the RAG system. So imagine every conversation, every exchange, every turn of an exchange. I say, hey, here's a whole bunch of things I want to ask about, and then it comes back. That's like one exchange. Each one of those gets embedded in the vector store. And so I made this video that, let me see if this will play through okay. The following is trying to show the 3D document memory structure of Kusog AI system, the AI agent. What I'll do is I'd rather just explain a little bit. So when you initially upload documents or surf the web, that bottom green two-dimensional plane represents those chunks of the documents. So imagine I uploaded 50 documents, and on the average of 5 of those little green blocks, those are the chunks of the document. And that's Z equal 0 in a 3D memory, okay? So that's the 2D plane of the traditional RAG system. Now I have a conversation up here that's Z equal 1, and during that conversation the embeddings that were used, you can see the lines going to the different chunks that were used based on the matching of the embeddings, and it remembers those embeddings, so that if you were to say, hey, how did you derive at that answer, it can say, well, I used these chunks of information from your system to give you that answer. So one of the responses of the response, besides the text and the images and the voice and the semantic network relationships, is the chunks out of the embedded document system that it used, including conversation chunks. Because if I go up here, that's another conversation, Z equal 2 now, which can reference chunks from other conversations and chunks from the documents or web pages you were looking at, and so on. So the idea is the more conversations you have, the more you're organizing data and bringing it into smaller chunks of content. And so when I do the RAG, cosine similarity searches, it's not just the cosine vector matching. It's using the Z index. It would prefer a Z equal higher value if there's not a big difference in the cosine similarity search value. They're all text. This is the original documents you uploaded. Maybe from your Confluence, maybe your Jira tickets, maybe conversations on other AI systems. You went to the web page, you navigate to CNN.com, you navigate to Wikipedia, you navigate to Anthropic's AI documentation, and you read that. You go to Microsoft documentation, and all those chunks are the raw data. Maybe you sucked up 100,000 pages out of your Confluence, and now you have conversations about it. Or jobs have conversations. It's not just a person having so the red blocks are the Z equal 1 conversation, Z equal 2, Z equal 3, and so on, and they reference chunks below them. That allows you to reference those conversations and the organization. So like imagine, in all this information about the Acme company, there was this company called the Green Group. And over the last 10 years, there's been 50 people that worked with them. And those 50 people are spread out across 50 documents. That's really hard to get out of a cosine similarity search. You're not going to go and include 50 chunks normally in the cosine similarity search. It's more like 2, 3, 5, or 10 because it builds up these big prompts that have huge bodies. So by doing that and then you summarizing these, now I have the whole team in one conversation. So when I ask about the team now, I have it all right there organized as like maybe it was like turned into a report even or something like that. Was there, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so each layer in this thing, will it loosely represent a personality, or can personalities also draw from each other?
So each personality has its own set of conversations. So the one beauty and reason why I like Elasticsearch is these could be one or more Elasticsearch indexes. When you do a query against Elasticsearch, you can say I want to use this index, like my documents, and then I want to use the counselor's conversations. And I also want to include the VP of engineering conversations, because you don't want to necessarily have them all mixed together. So, but I also might say, I have all my email in there. I put that in one index from my web surfing content because those are so radically different. And the more content you have in an index for RAG, it has to actually look at every document to give you the rank. Yes?
I get the mic. Is this a real microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. So once it goes above to those different layers, like we'll just say like layer 3, will it ever reference back down to the source material, or does it stay at the sub level? Like
no, it can, like if so like it will. Let me see if I can. So you can see here, like it's kind of hard on that, but this here is some lines go all the way down. Some lines just go to 1, and so the higher you can reference any level below you. It's just that the ranking, like let's say 1 is ranked at like 1.81, the cosine similarity search, just by text matching, 1.81 and 1.79. But one has the z-index 0, the other has a z-index of 3. I'm definitely going to pull in the z-index of 3, and if I only had 3 matching chunks, I probably would also pull in the 0. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm non-technical, so could you interpret this, for an example, as like the bottom layer as like ingredients, like bits of like all the different foods, the first level up as like recipes, the next level up as a cookbook, and then the next level up as a chef? So if the chef wanted to, I know you're like, that's a massive oversimplification,
yeah,
but like, possibly, if the chef wanted to make something, it'd prefer, rather than going all the way to the ingredients, to go, well, what do I need from the cookbook? Or if the cookbook doesn't work, it could go, well, what are all the different recipes? And if none of that works, if you only got 3 ingredients in the fridge, it goes all the way down. Or is that totally off base?
No, you're close in that respect. I mean, because it does try to say, now if there was a match, like on 0 was a 1.97, and then the next one was a 1.72 with a z-index 3, then it's a definite indicator that that lowest one is a match. But I'm pulling more than one match, like it depends on actually like your SLA and like what level of membership you have, how many chunks I pull back, because that increased the costs of the computations involved, or if there's an external SAS, how much tokens you're going to use. So if I pull in 3 chunks of content, that map 3 of these little blocks to say, hey, because all this is really a RAG system. All it's doing is the equivalent of you copying little pieces of stuff out of your recipes book and putting it all at the top of the prompt and saying, okay, tell me what I can do to make chocolate muffins. And you had to manually copy all that and build this, huge 20K prompt maybe, or 10K or whatever, and now it can answer you. And then it gives you the recipe things or with all your choice. You can copy that back out and paste it back into Word or something like that. And this is trying to make it to where you don't have to do that. And actually, this is so powerful for me because I have like all these emails from like 1996, so like about 500,000 emails, like everything. And so, I mean, that covers so much of my life and so many different relationships with people that I can have counseling conversations about topics that cover decades of time because of its, and so this really, the counseling aspect has been amazing. In fact, if you look me up on LinkedIn, I have a white paper, a psychology white paper I wrote about a psychology coping technique that came out of this system. And I've had 4 psychologists review that. And I'm not a psychologist, although I did take some. At any rate, though, they got good review from it. And in fact, they say it may be another style of technique for this cognitive technique that they follow in general. So, yeah. So I really like this, the memory capability of personalities and what that personality capability is bringing to your content, your ability to take actions and what they know how to do. And my hope over time is that it's kind of like when you hear about AI agents, right? The agents are just when you go into like OpenAI and you create an agent, it's kind of like a prompt you set up to say, your role is to do this, your role is to do that. And that prompt will then guide you through something, but you're still copying and pasting, and it's not really a personality. This goes beyond the typical agent, although I guess you could like manually create the prompt that I build. Like I actually wind up having a prompt that's wrapped in a prompt that's wrapped in a prompt. So there's multiple levels of prompt wrapping going on here to manage the personality and the data from the embeddings and other types of content that are coming in there. And we'll try to move past it. And so the current challenge, though, there's still challenges to deal with around conversations with personalities being visible to all personalities. So that actually becomes a problem, is that I don't, even though each personality's conversations go in a separate index, I don't always properly align the query you're doing with the personality you're on to limit it to the knowledge of only the conversations it should be aware of versus like everybody's. And I'm only talking within the context of me. This is a multi-tenant system, and each person has their own personalities and data and everything, and there's no bleeding of that. It's only really within me. I have all my data, and at first these personalities were all sharing the same knowledge. And so it's a transition I'm going through to try to be solidly, because there are times where you do want it to be group knowledge, that you've got a bunch of information. And the way I've been solving that is there's a hierarchy in that memory system. And so, like I said, when you query Elasticsearch, I can query for the multiple indexes. Well, there's a hierarchy. So if I'm the best way to describe it is if I was in an enterprise company, I'm a part of, group A in the engineering group that's a part of the enterprise engineering group that's a part of Acme Enterprise. And they could have indexes of documentation at each one of those levels so that I can, when I query, the indexes included are my personal indexes, the indexes from my group, the indexes from the group above it, and the corporate index as a whole. So if I started asking questions about human resource issues, it would be able to answer it. If I started asking questions about my coding that I was doing, it would be able to answer it, and so forth. So that's a part of that as well. Because we wouldn't want counseling conversations coming up. I'm writing a story for a website, and all of a sudden it's grab held of some conversation in a counseling session because the topic of the article was around that. So the personality roles, like I just kind of mentioned, we've talked about some of these things already, because I guess I jumped this slide a little bit. And these tasks. but I did want to cover some of these, like the you saw I've been going the software development. Part of what I'm trying to do is to have it build code. And part of what I'm trying to do is to allow, ultimately, the user to be able to add a new tab down here through conversations and not actually having to build code. So because the system already knows a lot about, and I'll switch over to content writing for a moment just to see a different slide here. And so this is a story written at this content level, 21 sections, and it has this structure to it. And I'm using English. It can do different languages as part of its output. And you can choose personalities to be the writer. And this is more for long content, but can be used to generate emails all the way up through novels. And I actually have resume in here. This isn't, this is the production system, but not the latest in development. And so you can see some of these choices in here. And actually, I think I can run, let me see here. I think I can run it locally. Let me see here. I usually need to tap into a local system, but maybe not to go this far. Yeah, I don't have my, let me see here. Goodness. Ooh. All right, so you're running. You are running. Okay, you're running. And you are running too. Yeah, I think because I think there's, it needs to talk to my server, and I'm not connected to my network, so my local environment isn't totally like localized, so I can't show the latest. But one of the things I've added here is a set of sections. Like if you pick a book, it can say like I want a cover, I want to have like a title page, I want to have a dedication section, I want to have the table of contents, an index or a bibliography or whatever. And then when you go to print view, it'll be something like where I have this in another product I have, where you can say pick the page size and do things like I have 13 by 19, I want 2 pages per page, I want it to be printed in book format where I'm going to staple in the middle and fold in half, and now I can have like a 30-page book or 40-page book like that, and print shops that could print that, and your personalities could generate this output, or it could publish to your website or to Google Docs, Confluence, or email. When you do a print view, it's designed to be printing, but PDF, print to PDF, which you could then, do whatever you want with. And so those, being able to develop jobs and being able to build features, coding and stuff like that, I've built an architecture that I've tried to train the AI on a very specific style of coding with predefined templates on how to build certain types of things. And so you could say, where I'm trying to go with this is that I want to build a new tab, and I want it to be able to build, have a list of cities with the current weather. And then that code, that could have been something coming out of planning, talking about that was a feature of the website that you want. And so ultimately that thing, you want to make it available to your users. And so now they could use that weather capability. Now the great thing about the way I'm building this system is that I don't have a strong dependency on any given model, whether it's local or remote or anything. I just need that to be able to be wrapped in what I call like an abstract interface. So if anyone here is like a programmer, I like to use this design pattern called the factory pattern. So I can say, hey, I need to use the ABC model, and it'll say, okay, LLM factory or Stable Diffusion factory, give me the ABC model. And then back comes an implementation of the interface where I can just say, go do the query, and here's the parameters, and then and back comes the response as a stream. I can give it a handler, and it'll get called back as it streams the response. And so these kind of jobs build that software from having conversations about where do we want to take the site and capabilities, having a VP of engineering decide how those we're going to break down into agile sprints, and then breaking those sprints down into tickets, and then having software engineers do the tickets, do the work. And you'd be surprised how far it can go. You know, you'd be surprised. And it's just gonna go faster. And because I'm not so dependent on the model, if, you know, ABC company comes out with the Wizard AI 2000 that blows everybody away, in about 2 hours, I could have it integrated into the system. I mean, unless the API was so radically different from everyone else's out there, which they're all about the same, they all give you the same features. So if you have an abstract interface, if the contract of that interface, I allow you to give me a prompt and I can potentially stream back the response, and if I can't, I'll give it all back to you as a part of the return result. And then that's it. Whatever it has to do behind the scenes, it does. Whether it's using OpenAI APIs or using Hugging Face diffusion APIs, or using the Hugging Face transformer APIs, or someone else's library like Anthropic. They have an API. I might as well just use their API directly. It's like 80 lines of code it took me to include Anthropic Claude 3 support. And so I just use the one that's best for the job. Yes.
You mentioned it's easy to switch to newer model, fancy Model X when it comes out. Wouldn't you worry about that changes the personalities that you have? Because the personalities are really the model plus the tweaks that you're adding to it in the system prompt. So
yeah, when you hard code a prompt, that's an interesting. So now there's this new type of programming where you don't hard code the prompts anymore. You program the development of the prompts by the AI at the last minute. And so there's this whole,
your base model is still changing?
Yeah, and so there is the potential, yeah, like, and so that's so going from, say, ChatGPT 4 to Claude 3, no big deal. Going from Llama 7 billion, which has a 4K window versus a 120K window, now you're even limited down onto how much chunks of content you can send down at one time. You're gonna send down 20? No, because it doesn't have 120K. You know, you don't have that window anymore. So yeah, you're not, if it's so limiting, if it goes backwards in prompt window size, that's a big problem. But that can be an issue when you're using these prompts. Like I can run these jobs where any kind of Python job that can run on the command line, that can be controlled with standard in and standard out, can be run as a job that I can then manage all the way through into the browser. And so I can run jobs that do this whole set of programming interviews, and those things have these prompts that blow my mind. And I could imagine those prompts could get thrown off by a new engine, but I would think that if it's going to be better, it should be able to handle all the prompts properly. It's usually when you take a step backwards, going to the smaller prompts, or you've done something like from 3.5, like you've done so much to try to get 3.0 or 3.5 to do the right thing. You built all these examples and stuff, so you built a 20K prompt, and it's not so bad because it's so cheap. And now you bring that up to 4.0. I would expect 4.0 to still handle it no problem. But it's also going to probably cost me 3 times more than I would have needed to, because I don't probably need half that prompt anymore to go to 4. So I would want to tweak the prompt, like you're saying, not because it's broken and it's not doing its job anymore, but it's costing me 3 times more than it needed to because I've over-explained for 4.0, whereas 3.0 would require me explaining and more in order to get it to output properly. And I would like to show a simple example of where some of that comes into play. So I'm going to choose this Quex Adventure. I'm going to choose Matt's Nightmare on Elm Street. So I've started the game. I'm playing Father Ryan of St. James, 81 years old. And I will turn off the audio on this. And so I've told it I speak English and Spanish. There's no code. This is, if you've ever played text adventure games like Zork, anyone? Zork, okay, any of those old, you'd say you're in the middle of a cavern, there's a fire to the north, and you can type walk to the north. Okay, you're now in the mystical pathway or whatever, and so you're moving from room to room to get something done. So this is a modern version of the old 80s text adventure games like Zork or some of these other ones. And if you've ever watched the movie Big, when he plays as a kid, it's the next level of text adventure where he's still seeing text and typing, but there's this animated character with swords and stuff like that. So now you can get text being read back to you. You see images of things going on, and I can type whatever I want, like say, pick up bat. And so now out comes the output, and you can see my inventory changed on the left. Because the way the prompt is written, it gives me JSON. So there's a little bit of code, I should say, that says, I will remember the JSON state, and I can give it back to you when the next, so the state of the game. So the game was actually, I wrote a prompt that says, well, I can just say, I want a game on the moon base, and there's these magic dragon, and it creates the whole map. So there's like a JSON that's a part of the prompt that says, this is, you're in the living room, and to the north is to the kitchen, and there's a set of stairs. So I could say, go up the stairs. And now I've gone up the stairs, and I have the bat ready, and I could say, walk into master bedroom. And so this is the Kusog Quest storyteller personality that I'm interacting with. And so now I've gone into the bedroom, and there's a monster, or there should be in there, and an evil demon. And so I could say, beat demon with bat. Yeah, actually I should have, because I think it's going to make me, although the demon isn't defeated, you sense, so I should have done it repeatedly. Hit demon with bat repeatedly. That's what I should have done. And so the cool thing about this, demon let out its final otherworldly shriek before dissipating into nothingness. And so there's some, look, it didn't put the Spanish this time. But the interesting thing is I could put like French, or I could put anything, any other, multiple languages, like even like say, I'll put Chinese in there too. And say, go to hallway. So you get the idea of it, and so it just decided it should have actually, and it may be the prompt size. Like I noticed that I'm trying to keep the prompt size smaller. Like how much is it willing to give back? And I think what it does sometimes is if it decides it can't fit all of it, it just goes with the language. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it does. So we've heard about the. How AI isn't always 100%. It doesn't always give you exactly what you would expect, and that's kind of what's happening. Because this is a fairly simple, straightforward, like fun demo of what is possible, without doing a lot of coding or something. And it's pretty easy to build a new game and then be able to edit it or do things with it, and then build something out of it without having to build a lot of code. Something like this, if you were to build an interface like this and all that, it would take a lot of programming work. And they're not like building Office 365 or something, but it's still a lot of time. So that's kind of what this, overall this system's trying to be, is provide these set of features that ultimately, like if you look at my LinkedIn profile, one of the things I say is I'm trying to build AI to help people, not replace them, by giving you accelerate your abilities to produce better quality work in less time. Not for you to go play Xbox while it produces all your reports, but to do 10 hours worth of work in 2 hours, or to make it possible for you to create artwork that you wouldn't have been able to create on your own. You know, like I used to be spending a lot of money on RF123 and Getty Images, and I so despise Getty Images. I hope nobody here works at Getty. I'm so sorry. It's going to be recorded. I didn't mean to say that. But because they'll come after you with the legal fees, the lawyers. Like if you're not properly utilizing the license, they'll find out about it. They must have bots out there searching for their stuff being used, and so I don't use any of that anymore. I just use, I really like the capabilities of the output of the image and stable diffusion and some of the stuff happening in that space as well. There's a lot of exciting things happening, and so one of the things I'm trying to wrap this up, and we can go do questions as well, is and I would like to wrap before because there was a wrap up slide. The future is where I'm going, group conversations. So right now I can have one conversation with one person. I want to do the equivalent of a Slack where I can have 4 personalities plus myself and maybe even another person all in a conversation, and we can interact with each other so that those things can have tasks to feed their jobs so they go do their work with those offline jobs. You know, there's prompts that are running chain of thought prompts. If you ever use LangChain, anyone here familiar with LangChain? Nobody? LangChain? It's a library in Python for programming different types of prompts, and makes it easier to use different AI libraries and stuff. But it's kind of gone off the rails, and I've moved away from it lately. But in general, it's still a decent library for doing these prompt chains, where I can have a prompt that generates output that becomes input for another prompt. And then if you think about like a decision tree, I could say, well, based on the output of that prompt, I'm going to decide to do this prompt instead of that other prompt. And then finally, you might have 20, 30 prompts. And so another thing about that I would mention is, has anyone here familiar with the batch API pricing from OpenAI? So, you know, when you use OpenAI and you expect immediate response, I think it's $1 per 10 million tokens or something like that, right? But it would be 50 cents per 10 million tokens. If you run it as a batch job, you'll get the results within 24 hours. So if it's not a part of a conversation, if it's a part of these kind of offline jobs, they can run and be half the price of what they would have been if you're using OpenAI. And then I prefer to use local models when I can, but sometimes it's just not the best choice, and so I'll use what the best is available at the time. So another thing is phone call screener. Like, I'd like it to be able to be that if someone's calling me, they go through my personal assistant. And then if it's not like something I don't want to hear about, if it's someone I do want to talk to, then it would forward the call to me. And direct interaction and control of the application. Like right now, it's not as direct as I'd like. When I go into the app here, no matter what page you're in, there's always this drop down and all these. And so here I am asking it about code. This is a conversation I was just having, and I was asking it to write some code, and it did. This conversation is always there, ready to come down and communicate. And my goal is to I can just say, hey, I want to write a story for Medium about that conference I did last week on AI. And it says, okay, and it pops up the UI, and it already started filling in the fields, and I can either just take over filling in the fields, or I could just keep having the conversation, and it drives the interface. So, but then the next interaction I'm trying to do is just get rid of that whole full UI. Like no more tabs, no more anything. You start with the agent, and you start saying, like, I want to write a story. And the piece of that UI needed at that moment appears to the side. and you do something with it if you need it, or you could interact with it, and then it fills out pieces of it. And that piece goes away, and then another piece of the UI comes up. It's not like Word where you have a ribbon with 1,000 buttons on it and 1,000 versions of the ribbon, and you've got to click through and everything. I just want to see the thing I want to see, and not a bunch of buttons and things and stuff like that, unless that's what I want, and then maybe the UI would show more of itself. So, and that kind of leads where, I mean, the future for me is that there is no more operating system or applications. You're basically watching a video that's dynamically created, and the app that you want is just displayed through that. You interact with the video, and it just disposes interfaces to you that you need in order to interact with it to do the data exchanges that you want. And people don't even build apps anymore. You just, because they've already got text to games. Have people heard of that, text to games yet? You just type text and then boom, a 3D game that you can control with like an Xbox controller. They've already got that out there. If you can do text to 3D game, why the hell can't you do text to operating system? And another thing, last thing, I'm sorry to rant, but now I'll do a last question. Programming, who thinks that in the future, the way programs will be written is it's going to generate Java code or C# and do all the unit tests for you and all that, right? That's what you think about AI writing code. Well, how about, what's the difference between a binary executable that the CPU knows how to run and an image or a video? They're a bunch of numbers. Why not just generate the executable that the CPU can run? I don't need source code. I don't need to compile anything. Just generate the machine code. And I can train it on programs. I would start with 8-bit. Atari, Commodore, TRS-80, simple little programs, 8-bit code, 8-bit CPU. You could train it and find out, is this going to work? Could I generate a new Atari program with a prompt? And that's it. Huh?
It's going to be hard to debug.
It would, but for a human, not for an AI, and you won't need humans to debug any of it. And if there's a bug, what is a bug? You didn't properly describe the feature, so then we'll just rewrite your prompt. Yeah, oh yeah, so that would be, you didn't properly generate an executable, that would be, wasn't trained good enough. You generated, it would be the equivalent of 6 fingers on a person that's stable diffusion.
Right, 6 fingers to the second ball.
Yeah, well, but that's okay.
It's still displayed.
Yeah. But that was now, and next year it'll be better, and next year, or maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 6 months, I don't know. But as it changes, remember that the system I'm trying to build is not to be the model that does all that stuff, to just be the system that orchestrates the activities so that you can really take action and make things happen with it. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so you're suggesting just basically human language as the programming language?
Yeah, I guess, right. You know, like a product manager might sit down, or a UX designer might, or just a user. I mean, ultimately, you would just sit down at your computer and say, yeah, I want to write a document, and up comes a text editor. Well, I wish I could like start to have fonts and stuff, and now it starts to become a little bit like Word.
So my understanding of why computer languages are the way they are now is that human languages are too ambiguous to make for good programming languages.
Yeah, because you can't get that human language to go down to CPU instructions like that. That's why. But that's not going to be a problem for AI. It'll make up the gap. And when that doesn't, if it's a feature fault issue versus a CPU fault, you blew out the register, or you blew out your stack or something like that.
Okay, I think this will be the last question because we're coming up on lunch.
There's a big issue with, human language actually can be said to be fully descriptive. We can think of mathematical proofs as an example of that. Proofs by induction are largely English. So there is a style of English a subset of English that can be used to effectively describe all functionality. That wouldn't be my concern. My concern would be compliance, right? Because it's already a hellhole just to certify Java libraries. Why do we want to go to the arbitrary standard of is the language that you've written at a level of rigor that we can say that you can get a bank to sign off on it, for example. Consider we have me and Tim have a lot of experience trying to get white box nonlinear symbolic regression models passed by banks, and they hate even that, and it's fully white box generative code. So I think compliance is a big concern when you're talking about anything for any business venture.
Yeah, for that level, like I've heard about the financial institutions and the fintech world needing to have, and also hospitals and stuff. So that's true, but I would also state, can you show me a bug-free system even with all your compliance? Because I'd love to see it. I mean, if you've got a bug-free system, I would just love to see it.
That's a false equivalency. Yeah. So, all right, guys, coming up on noon. Yeah, been a great presentation, guys.
Thanks.
I know he got a bit deep there, right, with some of this stuff, but actually that was very well done. I want to tell everybody before we break for lunch that we have Matthew Renzi presenting next month. Some of you guys will know who that is. He's the fellow that started the AI Meetup. He's just completed his master's in AI at Johns Hopkins. He's got a lot of cool stuff to talk about, so he's coming back. So I'm really excited, so I hope you guys can join us for next month's presentation here at Tech Alley. With that said, thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody,
Thank you,
lunch.
everybody.
Ciao.